Chong, and I wanted to personally thank the subscriber that subscribed to me, and I subscribe back because where I come from on Facebook and Instagram, and I think it's a TikTok thing now too. When someone subscribes to you or follows you, you follow back or you subscribe back. So I subscribe back to you for subscribing to me, and I appreciate your kindness because I don't ask for any subscribers. I just want people that actually want to listen to me because I'm not trying to make about a big deal. And you know what? I've got to take care of this. Hang on. I will be right back. I promise. All right, come on. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Oh Lord. Sometimes the animals we can do. But anyways, we have a tradition where we all help each other. We subscribe to one another. So if you subscribe to me, I will subscribe to you. But I like to know that people are actually liking my stuff or give me suggestions. But right now I'm limited to what I can do. I don't have a car. So I can't go out and do things. And I don't know enough people to do comedy skits, and I'm more of a book girl. So, and knitting and stuff like that. So, I guess that's where we're at. But I try to make it fun as soon as I can get other stuff. But I think I always like to listen to people when they're reading because I listen to audiobooks all the time, and I figure why not have be able to see the person that's reading you the book because I used to pay for it. Like you pay for so many credits when you get the certain tablets and stuff, and I would do that, and I liked it. I still like to listen to people read to me, so I figure why wouldn't other people like it? So that's why I do this. But I'm gonna get some more ideas. I'm gonna finish out the knitting project probably today at some point. But I figured that this book it was so nice. It's about this service dog that really helps this lady out when someone breaks in her house and stuff. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but it's a very heartwarming story. And we are a channel about my dog, and my dog is a service dog, so I figured why not read this. The Mafia book was good. It really was good. But I think I needed a break from violence for a minute. That was a lot. So I'm going to put my glasses on and start reading this book. But like I said, thank you for the subscription. And I know I'm not the most exciting thing over here, but I try to do things that I find exciting, which is what other people don't find exciting in the world. I'm I'm a goof when it comes to books. I love them. I love books movies that came from books. I love them. I think they're wonderful. I probably have an unnatural obsession with books, which doesn't, it could be a good or bad thing. So, but these are just things I like and I'm passionate about because I do like writing. And I do have a book that I have part one written. I'm trying to save up money to get my book done. So, and I did notice on the thing, someone said I had a chipped tooth, and I do. I do have a chipped tooth. I've been to the dentist, and they do not want to fix the chip on my tooth, literally, until they do two more deep cleanings and take care of two cavities, and that's the last on their list. I was thinking about getting veneers or something, but honestly, there's really no point if I'm going to another dentist and he's gonna fix that last. So that's why if you see the chipped tooth, that's why. And it is being fixed. It was a old cap that fell out, and they're aware of it, and my insurance covers it. It's just doctors take their good old time, literally. They will literally, you go in and they, for one thing, and they tell you all this other stuff they got to get done before they even get to the one thing you wanted done. But this is how doctors work. So that's where we're at with the chipped tooth. So if you see my tooth being a little chipped, that's why. And there's worse things in life. I did have, they said I was going towards gum disease. I don't have it. They're doing gum treatments and taking care of it. So, thank God I don't need any kind of dentures or nothing. And everything's being properly taken care of. And that's Chong. Okay, he stopped. He was moving his bone around the living room. Here, I'm just trying to see if I could do this. There he goes. There's Mr. Chong. You got that for Valentine's Day. But I think he's coming around again with this gigantic prehistoric bone here. And there he goes. All right. Well, that's the bone chewing. Lovely entertainment for this morning, afternoon where I'm at. But we're gonna start here while he's chewing his prehistoric bones. It's so nice I could just smoke my vape and all that. TikTok's getting crazy with that too. The introduction in this says, somewhere between the pickles and the olives, I found exactly what I was looking for, a dog. It was Mother's Day, and we were returning from a visit to my in-laws. The entire family was together, a minor miracle given my husband's schedule, and the fact that the older of our two children preferred to be anywhere but with us. We made a quick stop to the supermarket to buy something to grill for dinner. My husband and my son took off towards the meat counter while I headed down the condiments aisle with our teenage daughter. That's when I spotted the dog, or rather its tail end, rounding the corner. In the 2 years since Tucker, our German Shepherd, had died, I developed a full blown case of canine deficient disorder. The primary symptoms were preoccupation with dogs and a total loss of inhibition when near me, when near one. Friends had nicknamed our home Camp Lateral because that's where they would send their dogs every time they went away if I drove past someone walking a dog. I would slow the car for a closer look while my children slouched in their seats with embarrassment. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. So seeing a dog in the supermarket of all places sprung my mania into overdrive. Oh my God, I whispered as I held out my hand to stop my daughter. That was a dog. Mom, don't, she pleaded. But I already speed walked up the aisle, skidded around the end cap, and there it was, a small yellow Labrador retriever. I was keeping pace alongside a young man holding a basket of groceries. They stopped into the checkout line, the dog waiting serenely for their next move. They wore a bright blue vest with words, needs pup and training. This is where the story begins. All right, and now we're at chapter 1. My daughter says I threw myself at the man with the yellow lab, but she tends to be overly dramatic. I distinctly remember keeping a respectful distance as he described his role as a volunteer puppy raiser, even if it did require I clasped my hands behind my back to physically restrain myself from patting the dog. If it had been a few years earlier when Tucker was still alive, the little kids and my in-laws healthy, I wouldn't have re- I wouldn't have reacted so strongly to the sight of the dog. Sure, I would have been curious, but my mild social anxiety would have kept me from speaking up. Instead, I would have strolled by as many times as it took to make out the words on the dog's vest before retreating back to my shopping list. But on that day, I was feeling desperate. I should have been content. I had a husband who loved me, a good job, two healthy, relatively happy children, but I could enjoy being with my family today because the fact that the four of us were together only underscored how rare an occurrence that had become. Our kids were growing out of childhood and pulling me grudgingly along with them. I can identify with that. Soon enough, they would be grown and gone, and with them, much of what defined me for the past decade and a half. Without them, I'd have to somehow figure out who I would be next. The sight of the dog offered, if not the answer to my fears of the future. A pleasant diversion from them, at the very least, a possible cure for my CDD. The man unloaded his groceries onto the belt as he described the National Education for Assistance Dog Services needs, NEADS, which trains service dogs. I've heard of needs and even covered one of its graduation years earlier when I was a newspaper reporter. But back then, needs only trained dogs to alert their hearing impaired owners to sounds like alarm clocks and crying babies. I hadn't realized that in the years since it expanded its mission to train dogs to assist with a range of disabilities, multiple sclerosis, spina, spina bifida, or bifida, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder, and there was no limit to whom the dogs could help. In those days, most of our puppies are trained by inmates in prison and released on weekends to volunteers like the man in the supermarket, who by now had pulled out his wallet to pay the cashier. I said goodbye and he urged me to visit the Needs website to learn more. I returned to my daughter, who was lurking 2 lanes away, pretending to study the cover of Diabetic Living. That evening, after dinner, I settled in front of my computer and clicked around on Needs website until I found the page for the Prison Pup Partnership. I learned that Needs places puppies in select prisons throughout New England where inmates train them to be assistance dogs. The inmate dog handlers have the most coveted job in prison in exchange for raising and training a puppy. They get $3 a day, their own cell to share with their dog. Over the course of 12 months or so, these specially chosen inmates are responsible for housebreaking their puppies and teaching them basic obedience before moving on to more specialized tasks. With help from a professional trainer, teaching their dogs to pick up dropped coins, turn on light switches on and off, push elevator buttons with their noses, get the phone when it rings, open and close door, fetch items from a refrigerator because inmates have all the time in the world to devote to their jobs. They're able to train their dogs in about half the time it would take a professional dog trainer at a significantly reduced cost. There was one problem though. It's kind of a big one. Assistant dogs go everywhere with their owners, so they need to be confident in all situations. If all a dog knows is prison, it won't be able to function outside world. Things we take for granted, such as phones ringing, couples hugging, cars and kids, are likely to send the dog into a barking frenzy or scrambling for the nearest hiding place. This is where the weekend puppy raisers come in. On Friday afternoons, each puppy is furloughed into custody of a volunteer who brings the dog along on errands and outings all weekend long, exposing it to new situations and continuing its training until Sunday evening when the volunteer returns the puppy to prison. The application to be a weekend puppy raiser was on the website. I skimmed the questions looking for anything that might immediately disqualify me. There weren't any requests for documentation of an advanced degree in canine behavior modification. No trick questions asking whether I'd interrupt my dinner to reward a begging puppy with a table scrap or a slab of deli meat from the fridge. The questions were straightforward. How many adults in your household? Two, if you count me. How many children and what are their ages? 15 and 11. But growing up too fast, sometimes not fast enough. Any pets? Needs wanted to know about our house and yard. I described our location in a semi-rural Massachusetts suburb, emphasizing the local lack of traffic on our cul-de-sac. That I came to the question, why do you want to raise a needs puppy? I closed my eyes and thought about it. Long before Tucker was our dog, she was my aspiration as a kid, and I'd beg for a dog, threatened to run away if I didn't get one. Bargain and whine. My mother's answer was always the same. When you have your own house, you can have a dog. It was worth the wait. Marty and I moved into our first home in the month of June and took Tucker, a pudgy 8-week old puppy with an outsized personality, home in September. We found her in the classifieds of the local newspaper, the product of secret rendezvous between neighboring German shepherds. Tucker lived nearly 15 years. During that time, I had two babies and figured out how to be a mother. The Tucker years coincided with and influenced all those thrilling first steps. My daughter was a late walker because of the constant threat of being knocked off her feet. First words tough before my kids. The first day of kindergarten, Tucker rode in the back seat while I followed the school bus at what I hope was a discreet distance. There isn't a home video from those years that doesn't include at least one furry eclipse or scene blocking shot of Tucker's snout, and an off camera voice yelling, Tucker, move. Throughout the changes wrought by parenthood, Tucker was a reassuring constant. She kept us anchored to routine and amid the chaos of our kids and work. Every morning, Tucker and I went together for a 40-minute walk through the woods behind our house. I'd stand in the kitchen and call out, where are my boots? Running the words together so they came out in a single burst of sound. Tucker would push her snout through the kitty door to the basement, trying to reach the ledge by the stairs where I kept my shoes. She would dart forward, pretend biting my hands while I sat on the floor to lace them up and race back and forth the kitchen until I opened the back door, and then she'd streak outside, disappear through the trees, and wait on the path until I caught up. We did this every day, even when our walk was a slog through rain or snow, or I had to wrap a scarf around my face and keep my skin from freezing in the cold. I felt safe with Tucker. I worked for a newspaper, and when I was transferred to early morning copy desk, we had to start our walks in the pre dawn darkness. Tucker would stay close to me when I focused to the beam of flashlight downward to illuminate roots and rocks. Feeling as much as seeing the shadows pulse inward in either side of us. I draw comfort from Tucker's steady panting and side sound of twigs snapping beneath our feet, feeling protected by my dog and the noise we made together. When I was a teenager, I brought three things with me whenever I had to walk anywhere alone: a jackknife that I discovered half buried in the dirt outside my school, a rock that fit the palm of my hand but was heavy enough to use against an attacker, and a small carved wooden lion that my mother gave me after my father moved out, and which she said would give me strength. There was no specific reason for me to be fearful, just an awareness that sometimes awful things happen, and one should be prepared as best as she could. It didn't help that I was small. Even now, I'm sometimes mistaken for an 11-year-old from behind. With Tucker, I didn't need a rock or a knife or a wooden lion. She was my talisman, my weapon, and my protector, but mostly she was my dog. As the kids grew up, Tucker grew old. The moment of her death was quick and painless, but months leading up to it were excruciating for her and for us. It making me cry. Alright, we're gonna move on with this. Our dog, who in her younger years had so much energy that I suspected someone had secretly implanted springs in her feet, would struggle to stand up and collapse at her legs buckled under her weight. She was incontinent and I'm pretty sure heartbreakingly ashamed of it. Every night I'd kiss top of her head right between her ears. In the morning she'd reach over beside the bed and touch her body lightly with my hand until I felt it rise and fall with her breath. My relief at having my dog still with me. Oh my goodness. I should have brought tissues. I think I'm gonna go grab tissues. I'm gonna go grab some tissues for this occasion. Okay. I gotta gather my thoughts together now. Jeez, that's so sad. I know that one day I'm gonna go through that. I'll probably need psychiatric help after that, just to someone to talk to when it happens to me with Chong. But alright, where were we at? My relief I had my dog still with me would fade at the thought of her suffering through another day. Chong, stop. Chong! Eventually, Marty and I accepted that it was up to us to stop Tucker's suffering. She was at the end of her life. We had to let her go. So I called the vet and arranged to bring Tucker after the weekend on a Monday. That gave me time to tell her everything I needed to say to her. For those 3 days, I'd lie on the floor next to her and reminisce about her puppyhood. My panic on the first ride home when she'd stop yelping and crying. This is so hard to read, jeez. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is sad. This is the reason sometimes it's hard to get another dog. Ugh. Okay, I'm moving it along. She missed her mother and her siblings. How lucky we felt to find her. All of the dogs in the world, I thanked her for preparing me and Marty to be pairs, for protecting me and the children, for being our dog. Marty came home from work early that Monday, and we gave the kids time to say goodbye. They cried a little, drifted off to read or play. Tucker was their parents' dog more than theirs. At the vet, Tucker used her last bit of strength to snap at the technician. Was silently proud that my dog was. I can't stop crying. It's so sad. I was warned this was a sad book, but oh my god. Oh, this is some sad stuff here. Get tissues when you're reading this. Alright. I was silently proud that my dog was going out fighting. Plus, it was entirely in her character for her. Tucker loved going to the vet but hated the exam table. Every time we took her there for shots or a physical, she would race up the steps into the waiting room and greet everyone there with her tail wagging. But the moment we got her table, she transformed from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde and started snarling and nipping. And oh, I know it's running. Alright. And nipping, and out would come the muzzle. This time would be no different. The vet, a stone faced but kind woman, apologized when she handed us the cloth muzzle and waited while Marty slipped it over Tucker's nose, while the vet injected the dog with pentobarbital. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Marty and I took turns whispering in Tucker's ear that she was a good dog. Oh, jeez. Oh, this is so sad. I usually don't cry like this, but dang. Oh, it's a hard book to read without crying. You need a napkin like this, or you need a box of tissues. Alright, there you go. Our best pal ever until the vet removed the muscles so that in those last moments we could stroke Tucker's nose and kiss behind between her ears and scratch behind her ears, and we did until we realized there was no longer life beneath our touch. Marty's, whose decades as a journalist taught him the value of gallows humor in times of tragedy, took a long, wavering breath and said between his sobs, "Oh, Tucker, you always knew this place would be the death of you." The vet's expression had changed, but the technician laughed nervously. I put my arms around Marty, shaking laughter and sobs. Oh, ma. This would be the worst day ever for anybody. Oh, mm. Putting your animal down is very, very hard. And it don't even have to be a dog. It could be a cat. When we had to put our cat down, it was horrible. I cried and I cried. It reminds me of when we put down, uh, when we put down Tiger. But Tiger died at home, so she was very content. But it was still sad. Anyways, back home I washed Tucker's dishes and stored them in the basement. So I used pliers to pry the tags from her collar, then attached them to a long chain that and wore them around my neck. The following weekend, Marty and I picked out new carpet. I allowed myself to appreciate the luxury of not worrying about getting home in time to let the dog out, as I hated opening the door to an empty house. Yeah, it was very sad. I'm moving along. Hopefully, there's not another sad part where I gotta stop to cry. Alright. Friends wanted to know when we were going to adopt another dog. We all tell them maybe someday, but for now we wanted to enjoy our new carpets. Of course, that was a lie. Mari's always worried about tight finances and wanted a break from vet bills, but I didn't want to start over with a new pet because of a dog's limited years on earth were an uncomfortable reminder of our own. All endings do. Tucker's death forced me to look past my past and look forward to my future. Behind me was a life that spilled over with busyness and a growing family in front of me. I saw the same family getting older in less than half the lifespan of my dog's natural life. Oh, it's so sad. I don't know, I might be crying through the whole book the way this is going. Alright, I'm gonna try to get it together, get through these 2 pages. Alright, here we go. Alright, and here we go. I saw the same family getting older in less than half the span of a dog's natural life. The kids would be off on their own, and it would be just me and Marty left at home. Oh crap, I was crying. I swiped my eyes and stared at the question on the computer screen. I didn't want to raise a needs puppy because I didn't want a dog who would grow old and die, but that's not what I wrote. Instead, I typed, I firsthand know how much a dog can enrich a person's life. My dog was enormously important to me, and I suspected that for a person dealing with emotional and physical challenges of a disability, especially a trained service dog enhances his or her quality of life even more. Needs performs an invaluable service, and I like to be a part of it. I read over what written and satisfied and saved the application in my hard drive. The Needs Weekend Puppy Raiser Program I naively thought would be an ideal cure for my canine deficit disorder. Pick up a puppy on Friday night, return on Sunday. The new puppy every year, no strings attached. I could have been more wrong. Marty was in her bathroom a Neil Young's working on a Neil Young song on his beat up old Yamaha guitar. His face was partially hidden behind a harmonica. Stan looped around his neck. Marty, more than a decade older than I am, was already going gray when we met 20 years earlier, but he has a boyish quality that leaves people unsure of his age. He blew a final note harmonica. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience, he said, deepening his voice to a Johnny Cash twang. I clapped and settled into the bed. Okay, so you know that the dog we saw in the supermarket. He unhooked a harmonica holder from around his neck and placed it around his guitar case. Okay, he drew out the word. I noticed he didn't meet my eyes. Marty is the opposite of spontaneous. He needs time to warm up to new ideas, especially those that might bring an extra cost or complication to our lives. So I'm thinking we should do it. What do you What do you think? We have a puppy on the weekends. They supply the food. We won't have to pay for anything. and it would be for a good cause. Marty pulled the strap over his head and leaned forward to lay the guitar back on in its case. I figured he was remembering the recent Saturday afternoon he spent in the laundromat when one of our canine house guests snapped at him and peed on our down comforter. Well, I'm not crazy about it, he said. I brightened. He had said in some exact words. Oh, I don't know what that notification about. I was 8 months pregnant and asked how he was going to feel about naming our daughter in memory of my cousin Avira. 15 years later, he couldn't imagine calling her anything else. I'll send you the link so you can check out the program yourself. That way, at least you'll know more about it. I told him, yeah, do that. I'll take a look at it tomorrow if I have time. I was pretty sure he wouldn't find the time, or if he did, he'd choose to spend it some other way. But that didn't matter because I knew he'd be mulling over it. 18 years of marriage had taught me that. The next day, when kids were in bed, I draped myself over Marty's lap for a back rub. While he sat on the couch waiting for 11 o'clock news, he pressed his fingers in the area beside my right shoulder blade and kneaded the muscle. That's chronically tight from working the computer mouse. I turned my head and looked at him. Have you had a chance to look at the link I sent you about puppy raising? This time he met my eyes. I haven't. Tell me about it again. Marty rubbed my back mechanically while I told him about the program. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time, but I knew him well. I think he was ignoring me or forgot we were having a conversation. Eventually, I realized that he just never felt the need to fill silences. A commercial came and he patted my back, signaling the back rub was over, and I sat up and looked at him. Well, if it's that important to you, let's go ahead and do it. I smiled. A few days after I submitted the application, the phone rang. When I saw Deed's pop up caller ID, I felt a surge of excitement. This immediately triggered counter surge of cynicism, sort of self-defense mechanism I deployed to protect myself from disappointment, like an indoor sprinkler system reacting to a spike in the building temperature. I picked up the phone, bracing for a fundraising appeal. And, hi, is this Sharon? It is. I say, keeping my voice polite but non-committal. This is Carrie Limerese. I'm the foster family coordinator for needs. I work with the weekend puppy raisers. Hi, I said too loudly. Hi, Carrie said, gamely trying to match my tone. We received your application. Carrie and I spent about 20 minutes on the phone. I leaned there for a long waiting list of weekend puppy raisers in the two prisons closest to me, but not enough volunteers for the medium security prison in Cranston, Rhode Island. I'd never been to Cranston. I didn't know where it was, but I was beginning to feel more a little panicky about missing out on a puppy. So I flipped through my brain for mental evidence that Cranston was within reasonable driving distance from my home. The Rhode Island state line is 5 miles from my house. Providence is only about 35 minutes away from me. Is Cranston anywhere near Providence? I asked Carrie. She thought it might be. Gas prices were edging upward to $4 a gallon. I like every every other driver in the nation was cutting back on road trips, not adding them. Still, I wanted so badly to be part of Needs program. I did a quick calculation in my head and immediately began rationalizing. I was lucky to have a job that allowed me to work from home and drive in the office in Boston only once a week. Even if Cranston was further away from Providence, which turned out it was, but only by 3 or 4 miles, I'd still be better off if I had to commute into Boston 5 days a week for my job. I know one has nothing to do with the other, but I was desperate, and a desperate mind can rationalize just about anything. This is true. Rhode Island's a small state. How far could it be? I'll do it, I said. You sure now? I could tell Carrie needed confirmation that this was for real. I pushed all doubt from my voice. Absolutely, I told her. We made arrangements for me to attend an upcoming puppy raiser orientation at Needs. There, I get an overview of the prison pup partnership and learn what to expect as a puppy raiser. Once I completed the orientation, I'd be eligible for my own puppy. Before we got off the phone, Carrie asked whether any questions. I did. How do the puppies go to the bathroom if they're locked in the cell? I had been eating at me since I'm a puppy raiser in the supermarket. Harry told me the dogs were in minimum and medium security prisons where the inmates had plenty of time outside the cells and with complete access to the prison yard. Clearly, I had a lot to learn about the prison system, and as I was soon to find out about dog training too. At the needs orientation, there were 9 prospective puppy raisers sitting around a large conference table. A few were women around my age, but there was also a teenage girl there with her boyfriend and her mother, and a young couple who were new to Massachusetts. Most of us wore the blank but polite expressions people paste on their faces when they want to make a good impression but are running through their grocery list or visiting foreign lands in their head, or in our partner particular case, thinking about playing with puppies. The first few hours of PowerPoint slides and tips on how to read a dog's body language were seriously fascinating, and Carrie, who led the orientation, had an easy humor that made us like her instantly. But that morning, she hinted that we'd get to practice some training techniques on real live puppies. After our lecture, judging from the yips and barks on the other side of the door, the moment was about to arrive. Ugh, I was so sad about the other part of the book. Ugh.
Someone got a stuffy nose.
Oh, I was crying.
Oh,
The lady's dog died before she got the service, be a service dog lady.
poor pup.
And they had the puppy for like 20 years. Or no, it wasn't 20, I think it was 15.
Oh,
And I was thinking about Chong.
oh man.
What's wrong?
Alright. Well, I'm supposed to wear actual pants today. That's fine.
What happened?
I said about that. Wear actual pants instead of my cook pants.
Alright, well, I'll tell Tim.
I said, oh man.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I go to work tomorrow.
Just made it will sweat my ass off even more. That's all.
You
And
can't
now
wear
it's
any of
getting-
those again?
What?
You can't wear any of those again?
So they smell like fucking oil from hell.
Alright,
Which
well.
one even smells like?
Well,
this?
here, could you grab this white bag for me so I don't have to get up from the camera again?
Hold up, I'm changing.
Alright, well, when you do, this bag
Yes,
sitting
I
here.
got you. I know what the white bag for.
Yeah, he wants
Yeah,
you to
I
fill
know.
it.
Stop it! Jumanji! Damn.
The puppies have been walking over from the Early Learning Center, better known as the Puppy House, a 1950 style cave, at the entrance to the Needs property. We were in the main building on the Needs campus, an 18-acre spread carved into the woods of the rural town of Princeton, Massachusetts. The main building houses kennels, offices, and training rooms, all with purpose of transforming puppies into service dogs and placing them with people who need them. Across the parking lot is a 2-story farmhouse where the clients live with their new service dogs for 2 weeks of intense training. The 3-hour orientation was total dog immersion. We learned that needs service dogs are almost always Labrador or Golden Retrievers. The breeds tend to be eager to please, intelligent, and adaptable, which makes them easy to train and excellent helpers. Needs also trains standard poodles and labradoodles for clients who are allergic to dog hair, and smooth-coated collies, which tend to be tall, so function nicely as balance dogs for people who have difficulty walking without support. We also learned about the Americans with Disabilities Act. It doesn't distinguish between service animals or between different types of devices disabled people need, like a wheelchair or oxygen tank. By law, public places have to grant service dogs access. However, it's up to individual states to decide whether to allow animals public access when they're still in training. Fortunately, in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island, with puppies in training, we have the same fights as those with full service dogs. Finally, Carrie switched off the projector. All right, Chong. I know, I'm okay, Chong. There was just a sad dog story about the dog dying. I'm okay. Alright. And announced it was time to meet some puppies. I capped my pen and leaped to my feet, but I wasn't fast enough. By the time I reached the doorway, at least half the classmates were already in the taxi. Already in the next room and on the floor, melting into human puddles. When I broke through the crowd and I saw 4 pot-bellied, tail-wagging black labs and a fluffy golden retriever named Sutton. Oh, I gotta cry again. Well, this was turned into the crying game. I don't think I should read another dog book for a while. Uh,
I know. Mama's a little soft.
yeah. Well, my resident warned me that the dog book was sad.
Okay.
I didn't know it was this sad.
Oh, your resident did?
Yeah. Well, they have these books for free and they're large print, and I wear glasses, so it's easy. And she said that she cried halfway, like random times to the book.
Right.
But I figure since Chong's a service dog, I might as well read it. Because she said it goes through a lot of the stuff the service dogs go through in the book. And I can't stop crying. I'm in the first chapter. I let out a little cry and collapsed into an oozing mass right along with the fellow trainees. We followed Carrie and the puppies outside to a grassy area near the main building. She distributed the dogs by handling us to the ends of their leashes like she was dealing with a deck of cards. I was secretly pleased to end up with Sutton because he was, I thought, the cutest of the group. He and the other puppies were bolting around, happy to be outside, chasing insects and rolling in the grass while we humans at the end of our leashes looked on helplessly. Carrie grabbed a black lab mid pounce and showed us how to fashion a makeshift harness from the leash by threading it behind the puppy's front paws and looping it back through the collar. She led the chunky little puppy around like that, while the setup did keep us from lunging on the lead. It also caused him to lift his front legs unnaturally high, like an awkwardly prancing horse. We all practiced harnessing our puppies, then we worked on object exchangers. Carrie handed around nuggets of kibble and then pulled an assortment of chew toys and balls from a net bag and tossed them to the ground, one in front of each puppy. When the puppy grabbed its toy, we were to grab one end, give and offer it the kibble. Over time, the puppies will learn to give up an object on command. We learned a few more basic training tips, but the highlight was towards the end of the session when we got to practice puppy handling exercises. I hauled Sutton onto my lap and played with his paws. Stop licking my feet, Chong. Stop. I hauled Sutton into my lap and played with his paws, flapped his ears back and forth. Would you stop? I'm clean. Pried open his mouth and felt around inside while feeding him treats so he'd form positive associations with being handled. Stop, Chong! For someone like me who had been in the throes of dog withdrawal for 24 months, the puppy handling exercise was morphine. It's a wonder the needs folks don't have to mop me up with a sponge when we were through. At the end of the session, we were told that we'd get a call as soon as the puppy was ready. I didn't have to wait long. Less than 1 month later, I was assigned my first prison puppy, except Jones wasn't a puppy. He was a 14-month-old black standard poodle. Poodles need more socialization than most service breeds, so Jones had spent the first 5 years of his life living with a full-time puppy raiser in Maine before being transferred to a prison for more focused training. Alright. For more focused training, the Maine's raiser task had been to teach Jones basic obedience and expose him to as many situations as people as possible. So he wouldn't develop let's just say poodle like tendencies. Poodles are highly intelligent, finely tuned animals, and for those reasons can make excellent service dogs, but they are different from labs or golden retrievers. In a few key words, labs are forgiving, poodles are not. You have a standard poodle and accidentally poke him in the nose while spoon feeding him his nightly dinner of liver pate. He would never touch the spoon, chopped liver, or you again. Poodles, like German shepherds, bond closely with their person and tend to be skittish around unusual sights and sounds of suspicious people. That's why they need tons of socialization. So when Carrie called me to tell me my experience as a German Shepherd owner would prepare me for a poodle, and they had the perfect one for me to start with, my heart sank, but I kept quiet. My kids didn't. A poodle? No way. Vera waited when I broke the news. I thought we're going to get a cute dog, Josh said. Yeah, me too. Is what I didn't say. Instead, I told them in figuratively sanctimonious voice I use when I give the moral upper hand that we weren't volunteering with needs so we could have a cute dog. We were doing it to help others. Truthfully, I needed the reminder as much as my children did. Carrie had given me the phone number for the prison captain in charge of the puppy program at J.J. Morin Medium Security Facility in Cranston, with instructions to let him know when I was a new puppy raiser and I'd be taking Jones out that upcoming Friday. I was already sent in my vitals, name, birth date, social security number, and I passed the criminal background check. Never one to let a teachable moment pass. I let my kids know that it pays to stay on the right side of the law, but I wouldn't be allowed in the prison if I had a felony conviction in my past. They nodded their heads solemnly, given learned to humor their mother. I dialed the number and got the needs liaison Captain Nelson on the phone. I was pleased to find out he was talkative, not in a genial storytelling. I got millions of them kind of way. He was very thorough. I doodled floppy eared cartoon puppies in a notebook while he gave me some background on the program. He had helped me bring the first pair of prison puppies to Rhode Island 3 years earlier, and now we were a dozen puppy inmates teams, Morin and state other medium. Are you leaving? Alright. Medium security prison. I liked the captain's voice. It had a pleasant, gauzy quality, like it was filtered through a layer of muslin. I decided I liked him too. After he asked whether I ever visited the puppy house on the Needs campus, when I told him I hadn't, we'd only spent time with 5 puppies as part of orientation. He urged me to go sometime. I'll tell you, Sharon, when things are getting to be a little too hectic and stressful around here, I'd go up there and just play with puppies. That's my therapy. I stifled laughter as I imagined a burly, hardened prisoner captain rolling in the grass, giggling, and litter of puppies pounced and licked his face. He asked whether I'd been in prison before and told him just once when I was a reporter, but it was pre-release center and the inmates were all out on work release. It looked like a college door. Yeah, this is different, he said. Do you have a pen? I described exactly how to get here and how to get inside. He gave me directions to the prison and told me that once I got there, I would check in at the reception building, which was separated from the main prison by a courtyard. The guard on duty would pick up his phone and call the guards in the A block where the dogs and their handlers lived. I'd be admitted to the courtyard through a set of double doors and gates, enter the main building through a large lobby, and wait to be buzzed into an area called Shift Command, which was where the prison lieutenants and captain went about the business of running a prison. That's where the puppy exchange would take place, monitored at all times by officers on duty. The inmate would come down with the dog, a report to fill out, and food for 2 days. If I had any leftover food at the end of the weekend, I was to keep it. Puppy raisers are not allowed to give inmates anything except the dog and the paperwork. I scribbled frantically in my notebook, trying to form a map of route in my head, but coming up with images from the movies Alcatraz perched on Rocky Island, Tim Robbins digging his way out of Shawshank, except in my version, they were puppies. I hung up feeling reassured, but on Friday, when it was time to actually go to the prison to pick up Jones for the first time, I was jumpy and nervous. I tend to feel uneasy when I'm doing something new for the first time, and in this case, it was compounded by the fact that I was about to bring home a fully grown male dog who had somehow merged in my mind with the prison, leaving me feel like I was bringing a convict in my house. I fretted too about meeting the inmate whom I pictured a skinhead with a rough hewn prison tattoos and a dangerous lure. Perhaps to counteract that prissy French poodle on the end of his leash. When I turned off the main road, a complex of state buildings where the prison was located did not help my state of mind. JJ Warren Medium Security Facility sits at the edge of a dead end road, the last stop on what I came to regard as a scenic tour through human despair. One of the first buildings off the main road is a juvenile detention center. Its tiny exercise yard enclosed by a chain link fence that arcs towards inward to keep the young inmates from climbing over it. The state psychiatric hospital is a couple of doors down, across the street from a homeless shelter. Great clouds of steam bellowed from an underground vent in front of the shelter, shrouding its crumbling red brick edifice and particularly obscuring the shabbily dressed figures who waited on the steps for the doors to open for the night. The final turn took me past the state's minimum security prison, an ancient looking towering facility with its windows large enough for a man to fit through. On this day, an inmate pressed his face to the bars, dangling his arms outside, touching freedom. By comparison, Morin isn't that bad. There is no mistaking it's a prison. It's surrounded by double and triple rows of high fences and razor wire, but it's one of the newer buildings constructed in the early 1990s, and it sprawls 29 acres, which gives it open, airy feel, at least from a visitor's perspective. I found a parking spot and sat in the car for a moment, considering my pocketbook on the passenger seat. I asked Captain about carrying a person to the prison, and he hadn't mentioned anything, but somehow it didn't seem right. It seemed to, I didn't know, breezy to waltz in a prison with a flower embroidered purse slung over my shoulder like I was going shopping. I scanned the area to make sure that no one was watching, then I stuffed the pocketbook under the passenger seat. I forced my mind to go blank as I picked my way. Are you leaving now?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me you're leaving? I would have waited this stream.
Shut up. I didn't realize what time it was. Man.
Alright, well, give me a kiss at least.
I am.
I'm just saying.
I know. I'm dreading going into work today. I want it to be like how it was last night. Love you.
I love you too.
All right, Chong. I love you too.
Alright, did you put everything in that bag you wanted him to wash?
Yes, I think I did.
Alright, well, if you didn't, it won't get washed.
Yeah.
So double check it when you get home.
Yeah, I'm not tired of them.
Well, you probably will be. Love you.
Love you too.
Alright, I forced my mind to go blank as I picked my way towards the entrance. It's a trick I learned as a newspaper reporter when I'd be sent to knock on the door of an alleged mobster or to interview the family of a crime victim. As long as I don't think I can function, it took a second for my eyes to adjust to the gloom out inside. A skinny man with gray hair and a handsome face was sitting behind the desk. Hi, I'm here for a dog. He's a poodle. The guard reached on the phone on his desk and looked up at me. What's the dog's name? Jones. What? Jones, I repeated. The guard stared at me a long moment before chuckling and shaking his head. Who? Who names these dogs, anyways? Before I could answer, he was talking loudly on the phone. I need a handler for Canine Jones, he said. Drawing out the name like a game show announcer. Send him over to Brass's office. He clicked the receiver button and pressed another button. This time his tone was professional, respectful. Captain, dog handler on his way. He hung up and looked at me. I looked back. I don't know where to go. He gestured for me to pass behind his desk to a set of steel glass doors. Do I have to walk through that? There was a metal detector positioned off to one side. No, no, we make the dog people do that. You guys are special. I relaxed a bit. His jokey tone was familiar from the time spent in polite and fire stations. I took a lot of ribbing back then for being a female reporter who darted pierce the inner sanctum of the ununiformed male, and for being short. Guys think that's hilarious for some reason. The officer leaned over some paperwork while I walked past him to the door. When I turned the knob and pushed, nothing happened. It wouldn't open. I said, my level of comfort starting to plummet. He has to buzz you through. The officer pointed to the next room where I could see an older man watching me through tinted glass. Oh, jeez. Pulled at my earring. Oh, God, that kind of hurt me. Alright, I heard a buzz. Now you can open it. He said I pushed it, but nothing happened. You missed it. Wait for the buzz and try. I heard the buzz pause, pushing again. The door fused together, reminding me trying to unlock the car door as someone is lifting the handle to open it. The guard behind the glass held up his finger. I waited, my hand poised on the knob, feeling more foolish by the second. I heard a faint buzz and I leaned my weight against the door. I opened, got it, I said, a little too triumphantly as I stepped through and let the door slam heavily behind me. I was standing in a vestibule before another door identical to the first and had to go through the entire process again. Only this time I made sure to push the door as soon as I heard a buzz, and when I stepped through, I was back inside, facing a set of towering gates. beyond which lay the rest of the prison, stretching out either side. In front of me was a double row of 19-foot fences, coils of razor wire bulged from bottom up, height of a tall man at the top, encircling the rim of the fence. When a bird landed delicately between the blades, I flinched reflexively. The inmates at J.J. Moore live in cell blocks and by the clock. There are the six low concrete buildings housing two tiers of cells, each from which the ground floor looks like rows of numbered broom closets, except each has a tiny window. Segments of time are announced through a PA system that snakes through the prison complex, emerging here and there through perforated metal plates bolted to the walls. If you happen to be standing next to one of the speakers during announcement, it will rattle the teeth in your head. The day starts at 7:15, and when inmates are let out of their cells for breakfast, if you don't like what they're serving, you have money in your account. You can eat ramen noodles or a foil pouch of tuna fish, but only if you planned ahead and order from the commissary. Some of the inmates have jobs to report to after breakfast, but they have to be done before lockdown, which happens twice a day. This day ends at 80 8:45 with lights out. If you're a dog handler with a young puppy, you can flick your cell lights on at 10:30 to signal the correctional officer on duty that you need a final trip outside before being locked up for the night. But that's the most variety your day will have. For some who's used to hurrying headlong through life, always late for one thing or another, the process of getting into shift command offices where the dog waited was agonizingly slow. All the doors and gates at Morin come in pairs. You have to wait for the first one to close behind you before the second one opens, like an airlock to space station or a butterfly garden, which is exactly what I blurted out on the phone to the captain during our conversation when he described the double secure exit and entry procedure to me. He was silent for a moment, possibly processing the image of monarchs and swallowtails beating their wings against the locked steel doors. Finally, he simply said, I never thought of it that way. The first gate slid open and stepped into the face of the second one for a few uncomfortable moments after the gate shut on me. I was caged between the two, like an animal caught in a have a heart trap. And then the second gate slid open to a wide manicured courtyard bisected by the concrete path that lined on either side of the mulch beds. If not for the barbed wire on either side of me, I could have been on the college campus. The courtyard led to a vast, echoey, tilted hall that smelled faintly of an indoor swimming pool. At the far end, the two doors separated by a span of tinted glass, one marked visiting. I headed towards the unmarked door on the left, remembering the captain's instructions. The door slid open before I reached it. The journey into the shift command made me feel simultaneously overly trusting for allowing a successive series of doors and gates to left behind me as I ventured deeper into the prison and incredibly important for being granted access to such protected space. Well, this is a lot. But anyways, I'm at least on the drink. Jesus. That's a lot for a person to get used to right there. A dark haired, teddy bearish man in a dusty blue uniform was wearing when I stepped through the final door. He was about my age and had a kind brown eye. Sharon, I recognized the captain's voice. He held out his hand and I shook it, hoping my palms weren't too sweaty. Come on through, the inmate's on his way now. The captain led me down a short hallway that widened slightly into a vestibule that looked out onto the prison yard. A photocopy of New York Times article about prison dogs was pinned to a bulletin board. He invited me to take a seat in his office, a small room with pale yellow cinder walls and spare furnishings. That I sat on a rolling desk chair, planting my feet firmly so it wouldn't skitter out from under me on the tile floor. While we chatted about my drive to the prison, I thanked him again for giving me such detailed directions. He was about to answer when a short buzz went through our conversation. Here he is. Come meet your dog. I followed the captain's broad back into the vestibule where a large man with khaki colored prison scrubs was leading a black poodle through the door. The inmate bounded over, a wide grin on his round, boyish face, and grabbed my hand in a warm handshake. Hi, I'm Lance. And this is Jones. He stepped back, and gestured proudly at the dog. Jones was as skinny as a licorice stick. His body was so long that a blue knees vest only covered only his shoulders. It looked like he was wearing a fashionable woman's shrug. Jones considered me coolly from beneath his curly pompier, while Lance described in rapid fire speech the commands. Jones knew his feeding schedule, his quirks. He probably would have gone on to tell me about Jones' favorite television shows if the captain who stood by, his arms folded across his barrel chest, hand stepped forward to catch Lance's eye and nod towards the door. Lance handed me Jones' leash and his food for the weekend. When I returned to leave, Lance called out, "Oh, I almost forgot. Jones has a very strong prey drive, so keep an eye on that." Prey drive? I didn't know about what that meant and considered possible interpretations. I said goodbye to the captain, then waited for Jones for the first series of doors to slide open, and looming metal fences seemed less intimidating on the way back. Although that could have been because I was distracted by Jones, who jogged through the courtyard while I skidded along behind, turning over the phrase prey drive in my head. Maybe it was prison slang. We waited for the final set of locked doors. Jones whipped his head, and a leaf skittering by on the wind. But when the buzz sounded, I pulled hard on the knob and pulled him along beside me into the vestibule. The officer in the reception area swiveled his chair and watched us through the glass. When the second buzz opened and we stepped inside, he let his jaw drop in exaggerated shock. Whoa, what is that thing? A horse? He shifted his gaze from Jones to me. You could ride him out of here. Next time I'll bring a saddle. I called over my shoulder and as Jones led me out of the building. When we reached the parking lot, we scared up a flock of small birds. Jones, who stood taller than my waist, was over half my weight in solid muscle, lunged himself in the air after them, nearly carrying me with him into flight. The clear plastic food bag spilled to the ground as the dog lunged and dipped and dove in, lunged again. While I clenched the end of the leash, attempting to land him like a kite in a hurricane, eventually I managed to reel Jones hand over hand until his collar was within reach. I grabbed tight, yanking him long as I hopped over the space where the food bag lady, thankfully unbroken. Then, afraid another bird would land within view, I hustled Jones to the car where I stuffed him into the back seat and slammed the door before he could muscle his way out. Now I knew what prey drive meant. I hesitated before starting my car, but drove home with Jones anyway. Jones demonstrating his prey drive again and again over the next 2 days when I got him home. He behaved like an unruly child fresh off the Skittles and Mountain Dew binge. He pranced from room to room, hopping on furniture and standing on his hind legs to get better look out the windows on a sweep through the living room. He scattered a Lincoln Logs housing development that Josh had under construction and stole a small green bear from a toy box and carried it around the house while Josh complained loudly, and I deployed the object exchange strategy to extract it from his mouth. My eyes were spinning in my head. Trying to keep up with him, Tucker never behaved like that. None of the dogs we'd had in our house did. I wanted to pull Jones into a timeout or hold him down and force feed him Ritalin. Marty, who always looked for the positive angle of any situation, complimented Joan's spirit. However, much later he confessed to me that Jones reminded him of Mambo, a standard poodle from his childhood who would ambush him on his way home from school and try to eat his face. Josh tried to avoid Jones. Evia thought he was the ugliest thing she'd ever seen, but at some point during the weekend, she asked to take him outside on leash. She aborted her plans 3 seconds in when he tried to drag her into the woods, up a tree after squirrel. Walks were great fun for Jones, miserable for me. Jones would start out on high alert, plum tail. Oh, okay, here it is. Plum tail held high, eyes darted back and forth. I quickly learned to distract him with treats when he approached known trouble spots, which started the moment we stepped on the sidewalk to our left. Tethered to the neighbor's railing on a large cord was Peekaboo, a declawed cow. A declawed cat to our right was a yellow lab mix named Bailey, and next to her was Amy, a Jack Russell Terrier. Jones would take the treats. I held it out, snapping hard at my fingers while I rushed him straight ahead through the gauntlet of known distractions, but I couldn't avoid the surprises, and there were plenty of them. There were wild rabbits that turned suicidal in the presence of Jones, hurt, hurtling out of the underbrush and across our path. Chipmunks that would race across sidewalk like tiny remote control cars, their tails pointing straight up like an antenna. Jones would bolt after each one, dragging me along with him or ripping the leash out of my grasp, leaving painful red rashes on my palms of my hands. Jones went after two-legged and wheeled creatures too. Joggers, skateboarders, cyclists, fast moving children, he didn't discriminate. On the second day of Joan's second weekend with us, I decided to walk him only after the sun went down, and when it was too dark for either of us to see anything. This solved the problem of walking Joan. But his overactive prey drive kicked in at other times, as did with Avia. Brought the two little girls as she was babysitting over our house. I left Avia to introduce the girls to Jones. When I heard screaming, I ran to find Jones leaping happily on the 4-year-old who was shrieking and desperately trying to recover her face with her hands. Avia was grabbing at Jones's collar, trying to pull him off, while the girl's older sister pummeled his back and head with her fist. I yanked Jones away and into the dog crate, sliding the latch in place behind him. Jones was too tall for the crate. He stood hunched over like a jackal, his curly baffle sticking out the top of the gates, panting through an open mouth smile. Later, when Avia returned from delivering her charges safely home, she faced me, hands on her hips. Mom, you've got to get rid of that dog. Her tone sliced through me, releasing the vast reserve of doubt I harbored about my parenting skills. I went on defense in an attempt to quench the guilt. I made a commitment. Mom, that dog tried to kill Claire. Well, I wouldn't say he was trying to kill her. Avia drew in a breath, but before she could strike again, I told her I would call needs. Don't worry, I've got it under control. Those were familiar, and I was afraid hollow words to my children because it was clear I had very little under control. Other families ate together each night and planned fun vacations and educational activities. And ours, dinner time, snuck up and surprised me each night like it had never visited our house before. And I'd rush to throw together something that the kids would eat. Marty wisely came home late for entertainment. I opened the front door and point the kids outside so I could have some peace and quiet. It's that way I grew up. My own family was more a fractured collection of individuals than a cohesive unit. Then it broke apart completely when my father packed up and moved out, and my older brothers left for college. I just didn't know how to run a family, and here I was wrecking things again by bringing a killer poodle in the house. I called needs coordinator Carrie. The next week, Carrie was standing in my kitchen while I rooted through the deli drawer and my refrigerator for a plastic encased stick of string cheese to use as dog bait. Her plan to train Jones to ignore his killing instinct. Her method. Teaching Jones to play the kids' children's games, Mother May I. We spent the next half hour or so in the backyard facing Avia's two bunny rabbits, Snoopy and Mouthball. Carrie would lead Jones 20 feet from the bunny hutch and ask him to sit. He would obey, but the lock on the bunny's every nerve in his body ready to spring towards them. Then Carrie would tell Jones, let's go, and they would take a few steps forward, take a few steps towards the bunny, stop, and Jones would sit. Carrie tore off a piece of cheese, fed it to Jones each time is able to move towards the bunnies without straining on the leash. When he failed, they would return to the start line and repeat the process. Before Carrie left, she told me to practice with the bunnies every day that I had Jones. I did, and all I could say is I'm glad those bunnies were safely caged because each game of Mother May I invariably ended up with me peeling Jones off the hutch. That feel of dread I had for the first time I went to the prison, it didn't go away as I became more accustomed to the weekend routine. In fact, it got worse. Encouraged, of course, by Jones. During our phone conversation, the captain told me that some puppy raisers show up for a first time and never return. I could see why. After a while, hallelujah, Carrie was forced to accept the death of Jones' prey drive. She and another needs trainer, Forlong Jones, and two and three puppies into a city park. All of the dogs were interested in the pigeons, but Jones could not be distracted from them. Her voice was somber over the phone. We've decided to release Jones from the program. Release? What does that mean? For taking him out of the program, a friend of the family who fostered Jones for the first 14 months of his life would be adopting him, and Carrie assured me that Jones would be much happier living his life as a pet dog. I silently cheered. He'll be up in needs for a few days, though, if you'd like to come visit him or say goodbye. No, that's okay, I'm good. I'm the kind of person who doesn't give up easily, but if people are watching otherwise, I abandoned all sorts of projects. Somewhere stuffed deep in a bag in the basement, a needle, and the thread still dangles from an A in the embroidery sampler I began when I was pregnant with Avia. The first A in her name, not the second one. If not for my willingness to let Carrie down, I would have conceded to Marty that he was right. Our lives were chaotic enough without bringing an untamed convict dog into it. And who knows? Maybe I would have quit anyways if I had longer to think about it, but the leash burns in my hands and barely healed when Carrie sent me the email request. Take a 3-month-old puppy named Daisy. Not sure I wanted to try this again. I clicked on the attachment anyway. There she was, a tiny yellow lab, the color of buttered toast. Looking straight at the camera, I felt a smile spreading across my face, as in the wrinkled brow, the tiny black nose. Now this was more like it. That is chapter one. I'm going to take my black lab outside to go pee, and we're gonna go on chapter 2 with Miss Daisy. I heard this is a very, very good book. It was good enough to make me cry in the first chapter. My resident told me that this book was very, very sad, but good. So we're going to read this up, and I'm going to go give it back to work. All right. I will be back probably in about a half hour or so, honestly, right after this walk. And thank you for listening to me, and thank you so much for subscribing to me, because I subscribed right back to you. And I will. I will subscribe right back if you subscribe to me, because it's only fair, and we all do good things in life. And I want to be part of everybody's accomplishments. So I thank you for listening, and I will be back on. I promise.